We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today, I figured that we would change it up a little bit and do this kind of new format. And I want to go ahead and thank those that are all already unwilling participants in this little watch collector experiment. What we're going to do today is I went on my Instagram, The Real John P, and I found those that were following me, or they have left comments, or they liked a picture. I think today, actually, they liked a picture of the new Omega Speedmaster 321 movement in stainless steel. We actually just got one in at delraywatch.com. Not quite yet live on the website, but it will be very soon. So make sure to keep your eyes open for that. Probably one of the most desirable watches that you cannot get, but now you can, delraywatch.com. But nonetheless, these people, these three accounts are all public accounts, and they're mostly watches. I tried not to choose anyone that has a lot of pictures of like their family or their kids or anything like that. And we're going to look at the watches there. I've got my cell phone, and we're just going to look at their watches and just kind of me reacting to what's in their collection, see if these people have been watching John P in the past and maybe have added something that I've mentioned, or maybe from Federico Talks Watches, they've added maybe something that he has recommended. So we're going to do that. We're going to be putting up some pictures and having a little bit of fun that way. And if you do have maybe your collection or your Instagram that you'd like me to kind of talk about, or not quite review, because I'm not really going to do the whole review collection thing, because I talk about so many watches and someone is bound to have a watch that perhaps I don't like. Not saying these people, but someone, and not really trying to kind of disappoint anyone in that way. But all watches are kind of unique. So let's start right away. I've got someone here called T. Tommy Watches, a little watch account here on Instagram. As we can see, the first picture that I'll look at here, we've got a Tag Heuer Carrera and a white dial Milgauss. Very cool. I really like this picture, first of all. Very cool holiday theme, but I like the Milgauss. I think the Milgauss, they're going to be even more desirable and increasingly desirable in the coming years. I've seen Milgauss prices go up substantially. Now, I don't think people generally need the magnetic resistance capabilities of the watch with the internal shielding, but it's cool. And I will say, for those of you considering the Rolex Milgauss, that they are thicker and heavier and chunkier than a lot of the Rolex sports models that you'll find out there, with the exception of the Sea Dweller. So something to keep in mind for those of you out there looking to add one of these to your collection. Next, he has an IWC Pilot. I like this. I'm trying to see if this is the 36. Okay, it's the Tribute to the Mark XI. I like this. I really enjoy this, actually, on the khaki canvas strap. Really cool, rugged, durable watch. He's got a vintage Seiko as well, a 6139. Very cool vintage Seiko. I don't get into Seiko a lot, but when I do, it's generally a vintage Seiko that really jumps out at me, like this Pepsi bezel as well. He also has caught the Nomos bug here with the Tangente, or the Tangente 38. Great size, love the movement, believe this is the Alpha movement without looking at a picture of the movement. He also goes on to have a Tudor Pelagos. I think the Pelagos as well is a bit of a sleeper watch, much like the Milgauss, in that these have really picked off. Now, I will say that the left hand Milgauss has really seen much more demand in recent times, though the Pelagos, we still get calls for it and they still fly off the shelves very quickly here at Del Rey. So I think he's going in the right direction. And lastly, I'll touch on, it looks like he has a Rolex GMT Master 16710, the GMT Master 2 Pepsi bezel, classic. And I love the fact that these watches have these clinky bracelets. If you're T. Tommy Watches, you know what I mean about these bracelets. It's classic. It's technically transitional, but it's a whole different ballgame than contemporary Rolex, and I really do enjoy this one a whole lot. Very cool. He has so many more watches as well. Cool collection. I will say, by the way, that I'm not affiliated with any of these people in any way. They just happen to like my pictures, and I thought they had some cool watches. Next, Simply Wrist Shots. Let's go ahead and pull them up as well, going into their collection. Right away, Rolex Submariner ceramic bezel 114060, no date. I love this watch as a choice so much for what looks to be an outdoor expedition of some type or a hike in the woods in Austria, because this does not have a date. I feel that so often watch collectors want to have the Submariner with the date because they want that Cyclops, and Cyclops is Rolex with the date just. I see it so often, but I enjoy it so much in the proper symmetry without the date as well. I don't have a Submariner currently in my collection. I sold my 16800 sometime back because honestly, a fellow collector wanted it much more than I did, to be honest with you. But I love this one a whole lot. I really do. Also has an IWC Pilot's watch. We have a Mark XVI automatic. Really cool. I like the strap he put it on. This kind of like dark. It might be cordovan. It might just be calf skin strap, but definitely interesting. Love this. And what is he? You cannot go wrong without a Seiko SKX009. So this guy likes to switch it up a little bit, switch and throw in the Seikos with the Rolex. Very interesting, very cool, very versatile collection. He also has other watches, but we'll move on to the next gentleman. I assume gentleman by the wrists, but it's Watch Idiot Not Savant. So WIS, sometimes we call it, or Watch Idiot Savant is kind of slang term for a guy that goes on the Rolex forums or the Watch You Seek forums, and he kind of geeks out or nerds out about these things, and they sometimes claim to know a lot about watches, but this person's actually saying they're not, and they're not a savant. So kind of an interesting little play there on the words. Let's pull them up. Very cool. We'll touch on the Seiko 45GS. Interesting. A very interesting watch. I will admit that when it comes to vintage Grand Seiko, there's kind of a couple staple iconic vintage Grand Seiko pieces. And judging by the looks of this particular piece, the finishing is very solid. I think it's a pretty nice example. Very cool watch. And you don't see people wearing vintage Grand Seiko all the time because when something goes wrong, you need to know the right guy that can service this. Not everyone can or is willing to service and find vintage Grand Seiko parts. So it takes a special someone that really wants to own that because they like the design and the styling and they like the brand, and not necessarily care about any potential situations that may arise. Later, we have a vintage Omega dress watch on a bracelet. Very cool. We have... What else do we have? Oh, okay. We have a vintage Movado chronograph. This is the M95 or the 95M, I believe, not Panda dial here, not to be confused with the N95 mask. Very awesome vintage Movado, I believe, is another brand or segment of vintage, really, that's going to just take off. There was a lot of jump overs between Movado and Zenith in the past and some co-branded dials. This one looks to be, I can only zoom in so far, but it looks to be a very clean example. I myself have been thinking about adding a vintage Movado chronograph to my personal collection as well. And here we are with some vintage Tudor subs. There we go. Vintage Tudor Submariners. Very interesting as well. And lastly, a vintage Longines salmon dial dress watch. He goes on to have other watches additionally, much like the rest, but we can only cover so many. If there are any Instagram watch guys out there that maybe spend a lot of time, feel free to reach out, send me a message, Instagram, The Real John P. And if this segment appears to be a bit of a hit, we can introduce more of these kind of reaction or maybe reviews in the future. I'll think about it. Now that I kind of go through this, it's pretty interesting to check out and see actually what you have there, because in the comments below, we can only talk and write so much, but pictures really say 1,000 words or something like that, I think. Anyway, guys, back to work for me here at Del Rey. I'm actually going to go play with the Speedy 321 a little bit more before someone takes it off of our hands, and I may never see one again. Anyway, guys, everyone have a great day. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.